the US dollar or the fiat currencies are actually designed to go to zero. And but there's definitely a lot of fear as well for holding Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies, because all it is two little codes that you have. One would be the private key used to transfer out your funds from your virtual wallet, and the address as well, which is used to send you tokens or cryptocurrency to your wallet. So, but there were incidents in the past where Bitcoin was hacked. There is a bit of a war going on in the cryptocurrency space, where they have the white hats and the black hats, and the black hats are the ones who hack certain people's systems, and they hack whatever Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies they have in a particular place. And the white hats are actually the opposite. They find a way to reverse that and send the funds where they belong. So it's pretty interesting, and it is quite trackable. There were incidents back in 2009 where people were using cryptocurrency or Bitcoin for illegal things, and it didn't gain a very good reputation. But the thing is, you can say the same thing for fiat as well, physical cash. You know, there's crime involved with physical cash as well. But essentially how the banking system works for your fiat dollars is that whenever you keep your funds in a savings account, or a checkings account, although virtually it shows the full entire amount in your account, 90% of it is actually lent out by the banks. And the reason being is because that's how banks make money. They lend out the money of ours, 90% of it, to other companies and to other governments to make some profit off of it. So that whole lending process is exactly what happened in Greece during the Greece crisis there. The economy crashed and everybody ran to the bank to get their funds. But what they found out was the banks were broke, and that's why it's a bit of a failed system. And that's why some people take money, like the Japanese, and place it under their mattresses, because they feel that it's a safer place to have your money than inside the vaults of a bank, where your money actually doesn't exist. But there's been around 20 countries that went through hyperinflation, and it happened to Zimbabwe, where in the end they decided to adopt the US dollar, and it's happening currently in Venezuela. So Venezuela is hyperinflating. I believe they're close to the 1,000% range. So they have to decide very quickly on what they're going to do. They definitely don't want to adopt the US dollar, but that's why they thought of creating a cryptocurrency for their own country. So some of the good points about Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space would be that it's decentralized, so no governments or banks can touch your coins. And another thing is it's easily transferable using your private keys and addresses. But given that the banks have no way to, touch your individual cryptocurrencies is great as well, because they can't use it for their own investment purposes like they do for our fiat. And it's not inflationary as well. So inflation is everywhere. Even the government owes money to other countries using bonds. Essentially, the US government borrows money from other countries and tells them that they will return their funds in a 10-year period with an interest of 5%. and that's what it works out to be today. The cons you see for Bitcoin or the cryptocurrencies is that there's very high volatility because it's not connected to the banks. There's no regulation, so you'll see Bitcoin actually jumped up from $800 to over $20,000 in I believe it was less than a year. Another issue is that because it's harder to track, there is some illegal activities involved around Bitcoin as well. They're actually getting better at tracking Bitcoin. That's mixed up with Bitcoin in the cryptocurrency space as well. A lot of those ransoms nowadays ask for Bitcoin other than fiat. But another con would be that you have to keep it in a cold storage. And it actually takes a little bit of skill and expertise to learn what all of that is. And but to be honest with you, a good 15 minutes and you'll understand it. But then using your private keys and the addresses to store your cryptocurrency and tokens takes a little bit of work in knowing what's going on. But once you do, it's pretty easy to manage. Another issue is that it's very difficult to collect taxes on as well. So there's tax avoidance. Although I mentioned that there are tax software out there where give you a plan to pay taxes on your cryptocurrencies, but it's really voluntary because I mentioned earlier that it's hard to really track the history of your bought and sold cryptocurrencies, especially when they didn't have the licensing back in the day. They do, a number of corporations that are regulated with licenses do have a trackable history, but some of the decentralized platforms did not. So it's really hard to say what you've gained from the profits. And right now there's I believe it's Japan and Singapore that has legalized cryptocurrency, and you can actually pay for things in particular stores in Japan if you wanted to, using your Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. But it's actually too expensive to use Bitcoin at this time. The transactional fees are in some cases might be more than the product that you buy. So, but then they're looking to do some releases there to make it more affordable to use your cryptocurrencies. But what has been shown in history is that whenever the private sector finds a way to create a new type of monetary system, the government always steps in to regulate it. So that's most likely going to be the case. Although Japan, it'll be interesting to see what they will do over the years. As I mentioned earlier, they're in a state of a bit of a crisis, I would say, because they have the most debt in the world right now, and it's almost an impossibility for them to pay it back. So it's either they completely get rid of the Japanese yen tied to the US dollar, tied to only the confidence of the US Federal Reserve, not backed by anything, or to adopt the cryptocurrencies. So for all of the points that I just mentioned, it's not investment advice, of course, but there's always that potentiality of Bitcoin or the cryptocurrency space become part of our monetary system in the future. Now, the US dollar or the fiat currencies are actually designed to go to zero. And that's what inflation is. Our currency, the worth of it, is designed to go to zero. And back in 2008, essentially the system was supposed to be reset at that time, but it did not. Interesting enough, Bitcoin has been in existence for the last 10-year period. Now, it might be something that's becoming somewhat accepted because it's something that can't really be shut down at this point in time. It's actually possible for central banks to make their own cryptocurrencies as well, starting from scratch and maybe competing that way again, but then this time with limited amount of tokens, so inflation could be managed more effectively. But regardless, it might be our future. And I actually heard that it's actually very much easier to just transition the fiat that you have in your bank account there and switch it easily to cryptocurrencies in a day if they wanted to. So it's not it's definitely not investment advice. There's still no mass adoption of cryptocurrencies at this time, but it is something to carry a little bit of, and I'm actually carrying it for those two reasons, with the possibility of it raising quite high in the future, and the possibility of it becoming a better part of our monetary system where it could be regulated and managed, and without our governments playing around with our money and our lives. So this is probably the whole reason why that there's a global slowdown. You know, the governments are playing with our money, and it's very hard for them to even figure out what's going on themselves. There's definitely no experts out there, but one thing is sure is that a reset would probably need to occur because of all of the fiat that's in our monetary system at this time. Think of Bitcoin in the cryptocurrency space in the comment section below. If you like this vlog, please don't forget to give me a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell for more of my coming content here. Thank you for watching my vlog. Be free, gain wealth, and travel far.